Hi, hello, friends. Welcome back to Night Court Narrative. I am Elvish. This little cutie next to me is Violet. Today we are finishing up the pre-series. I am talking about the third and final book in the series called Saint. Yes, Saint. I always get Saint and Sinner mixed up. Like, oh my god. We are talking about Saint. This book is going to, or I guess this video is going to be incredibly short. I am so sorry. I did not. How do I say this? This book was really good, but it was my least favorite in the series. So I do apologize. So it's not going to be the longest. I'm very apologetic for it. Even though this wasn't my favorite in the series, I did still give it a 4.5-star rating. I can appreciate the writing style and I can appreciate the story for what it was, but was not my favorite. But yes, let's go ahead and get into it. As always, I do spoilers. Please keep that in mind. This is your warning. And yeah. So in this book, we are talking about Aiden Bell. He is the youngest of the Bell brothers. As you know, we did Tyler, which is the middle brother. He was book 1. And then Sean, which is the oldest. He was book 2. Now we are finally on Aiden, which is the youngest, book 3. He once lived a very successful and worldly life, full of politics, luxury, ambition, but of course something always felt wrong. After suffering an emotional breakdown and struggling with his bisexuality and the death of his mother, Aiden eventually leaves it all behind and joins a monastery in the Pacific Northwest and becomes a monk. With that being said, Aiden is now living as Brother Patrick. He lives a life of quiet devotion, hard labor, spiritual discipline. But Elijah, this is now his former lover and best friend. I do think that Elijah is Zinni's brother, I believe, if I remember that correctly, because I think Elijah is Sean's best friend and Zinni, which is now Sean's wife, is his best friend's younger sister. So I think Elijah is Zinni's brother. I could be wrong. Please correct me if I'm wrong, but just so we can tie it all together. But yeah, Elijah, this is Aiden's former lover and best friend. He arrives at the monastery for a grant-funded photography project, and yeah, Aiden's peace now begins to crumble. Years earlier, Aiden and Elijah had fallen in love, but Aiden left Elijah without warning or any closure for that matter. Elijah, still obviously hurting and very curious, agrees to document the monks and the monastery, but it's clear that he's also here to confront Aiden and get the truth behind his sudden departure. Their chemistry is an electric encounter, I guess, electric as ever. Despite the vows Aiden has taken, the two share intense conversations, stolen glances, and the kind of emotional intimacy neither has found since. The line between penance and passion begin to blur, especially as Aiden starts questioning whether his withdrawals from the world was spiritual surrender or spiritual avoidance. Which, I mean, obviously you know that in the series, both Tyler and Sean kind of have spiritual avoidance at some point in their life as well. So I can understand that. But throughout this book, Aiden grapples with his beliefs. He still loves God, but he also really loves Elijah. And he's beginning to wonder whether his vows of chastity is truly what he is meant for, or if it's a shield from confronting deeper truths about who he is as a person. When their tension erupts, Aiden and Elijah share a deeply passionate and emotionally charged night together. Aiden confesses his past guilt and shame, how he never believed he was enough for Elijah or for God, or anyone for that matter, and how he thought love and his queerness couldn't coexist with his holiness. Now, afterwards, Aiden decides to leave the monastery, not because of failure, but because his spiritual journey now demanded something different. He chooses to love Elijah openly and build a life rooted in both faith and authenticity. And of course, the novel ends with Aiden and Elijah driving away together, full of hope and love. Aiden's story becomes one of the redemption, identity, and the understanding that I had hiccups. Jesus, I now lost my train of thought. um, yeah, I don't know. I lost my train of thought. But, you know, they're happily ever after, as always. But, yeah, this book wasn't my favorite. With that being said, this book honestly was not bad. I did love the story and the forbidden romance, but it was a bit slower than the others. The other two had amazing character development, and this one was just a little bit more subtle. The development wasn't as apparent as the other ones. So you do see some growth, but with the slower story, I didn't feel the impact as much as the others. I also didn't really like Elijah all that much. I feel like his character was very sporadic. I feel like there were some points of the book where Elijah was very well written and you could see his goal and everything that he was set out to do while he was at the God, I already forgot the word. What word? The monastery? I'm sorry, I've said this in the last 2 videos, so you're gonna hear it again. I am not religious whatsoever, so I am so sorry. I don't know these certain words and like the phrases for things, so I am very sorry. I am very, very sorry. What is the word? I have to go back to my notes. Yeah, the monastery. So you could kind of see like what he was meant to do there and like his goals and everything of that nature. But then halfway through the book, I feel like Elijah got incredibly muddy. I feel like he was just there to be there. I do think that, like I've mentioned it in the other books and the other reviews, the writing style that Sierra does is very comforting and it's very well done. She does her descriptions very well, and she has such a very unique writing style that's very easy to digest for most readers. However, I do feel like this book, Elijah specifically, I feel like he was very well written, but then halfway through the book, I don't know if she necessarily gave up or if she just had kind of writer's block with him particularly, but I just feel like Elijah halfway through the book just stopped being interesting, and I also feel like the development for him just stopped being apparent and he kind of just became blurred. So I think that's where my hardship, I don't know, I don't know the word I'm looking for. That's kind of where my thought process on him ends. I really kind of liked him at the beginning. He was kind of okay, but then towards the end I didn't really have an opinion on him because he was just there. He was a name on the page, but there was really no personality behind him, no complexity behind him, no ambition or anything behind him. There was like, it was just a name written on a page. So I kind of didn't like that. Aiden, on the other hand, he was unusual, I guess. He isn't my favorite brother. He's kind of a loner, kind of Debbie Downer type. He's very much... He's a little bit... Oh, man, I don't know how to say this without just sounding like an asshole. Aiden is the one that takes a lot of self-pity and just throws it at himself, and I understand that he's struggling with the death of his mother, his sexuality, and he's also struggling with his calling in life, but I do really feel like he does take a ride on the pity party train very frequently, and it kind of at some point just gets old because you're just like, okay, I understand, and I understand that there's supposed to be character development, and to an extent, as I mentioned, there is a lot of development in this book, but it's very subtle compared to the other two. The other two, it was night and day. You can definitely see from the first chapter to the last chapter, you can definitely see the difference and the change within the characters, but this one wasn't so much. Like, if I'm talking like, let me put it in like simple terms. If I'm talking about like chapter 1, they're at a 1 or a 2 of like development, and then at the end they're like a 10 to 15 on a scale of 1 to 10, and you're like, holy fuck, like this was good. This book, if they're on a 1 or 2 to start off, they're at like a 3 or a 4 at the end, in my personal opinion. So like, you can see some development there, but I do feel like the book ended so abruptly. I don't think we got everything we needed to in this book. I do feel like she kind of spent too much time focusing on the world building aspect rather than the relationship or the inner fights and monologues with both characters, so I do think that kind of got mudded a little bit. Also with me personally, didn't necessarily I didn't necessarily enjoy the romance between the two. I didn't like the spice. I thought it was very boring. I understand this is male on male. I'm not necessarily against male on male or female on female, whatever. I'm not necessarily against queer romance. I just, however, think that this specific book, the spice was not it. The spice was boring. I didn't necessarily like any part of it. It just, it wasn't for me, you know? And with that being said, I just feel like their relationship and the complexity behind their relationship, I mean, their relationship was not complex at all. That's kind of what I'm getting at. But I just feel like Elijah was very pushy, and I feel like he was very disrespectful. He kind of came into Aiden's world and kind of pushed himself on him, and I think he was kind of the reason why Aiden took a step back and was like, okay, maybe I need to rethink life, because he was doing very well for himself. And then Elijah came in and basically was like, nope, this is what we're gonna do. I'm gonna see if I can turn him on. Oh, I turned him on. Now let's see how much farther I can go. And it was very disrespectful, and I didn't like the fact that I understand Aiden left him with no warning or anything like that. I get that, but it just rubbed me the wrong way, and I didn't like the fact that I don't know, I really didn't like the fact that, you know, it felt wrong. It felt so wrong, and it just felt inappropriate, and I don't know. I wasn't fucking with it. I wasn't fucking with it. And I think if maybe Elijah was written a little bit different, I understand he was trying to, or in my opinion, I perceived him to be a little bit pushier and a little bit more sporadic, as I've already mentioned. But I think if he was written a little bit different, or if he had a little bit more sympathy, or I mean, honestly, just personality, I feel like the book would have been a little bit different. I don't think this book ever for me was going to be a 5-star rating, because again, the spice just wasn't there. I do think this is probably going to sound really mean, and I'm sorry, I don't mean anything by it, but I do think that the author put so much effort into having spice every other sentence and every other paragraph in the first book, that when it finally did get to book 3, it was like, okay, next. You know what I mean? Like, she just put so much effort. Like, in Priest, if you haven't watched the other videos, in Priest, it was smacks. In book 2, there was a little bit, but that is how the book was set up. That worked perfectly. Book 2 was phenomenal, 10 out of 10, love it, one of my favorite books. This book, though, once we finally do get to that point, I'm just like, okay, this is... do you guys know that meme? Do you know that meme on TikTok? The story you are about to hear has been told before. Like, that's literally all that's how the spice is once we finally get to this book. It was just so boring. I literally, and I mean literally, I listened to half of one spice scene, and then like halfway through the book, that's all it was. Like halfway to the end, all it was again spice. I skipped every spice scene. So the last, oh god, I don't know, maybe the last 10 chapters, I think I maybe read maybe like 10 pages out of 10 chapters. That was it. And I just skimmed through it, because it was just like the same spice scene duplicated every chapter, and I'm just like, I'm so fed up, man. But no, that's honestly, this video is really short, and I'm sorry, but that's really all I have to say. I think the series was very well. Now that I finished the series, I do think Sinner is still my favorite. This one was okay. It just, for what it was worth, I can see where she was going with it, so I gave her a very generous 4.5. I should have given her a 4 or lower, but I wanted to be generous because I could see the vision, and I could see where she was going with that. So I do appreciate that, and I appreciate what she did with the series and how she ended it off. So I wanted to, I guess, be a little kind. So I did give her a 4.5. Yeah, like, how did you guys like this series? Did you guys like it? What are your thoughts? Like, what are your honest thoughts about it? Because if you hated the series, let me know. I'm that type of person. I said it in the last video too. I'm that type of person. I would love to discuss. Like, there are books that I swear Book Talk is like, man, this is the best book ever. And I'm just like, what the fuck did I just read? You know? Like, I definitely love that people are able to share opinions and be respectful about it. So for me, I want to be able to share those opinions with everyone. And if you hated this book, let me know why. And I would love to tell you why I mean, if you need more, like why I wasn't okay with it or why I loved a certain aspect. And, you know, I just love that. But thank you guys so much for being here. I know I said it in a few videos ago, and I will say it again. If you are still this far in the book, we might have a surprise coming. Well, we do have a surprise coming up. So definitely keep an eye out for that. It's coming. But yeah, I hope everyone has a very wonderful day, and as always, I will see you guys in the next video. Bye.